So we're going to go ahead and start because we've got a lot to cover today and really fortunate for who our guest is today. So welcome everyone. I'm Diana Purcell. I'm the Senior Grant Programs Manager for Whole Cities Foundation. And today we have the pleasure of virtually visiting About Fresh, which is an amazing Boston-based organization that's expanding fresh, healthy food access in their community in creative and efficient ways. We have a few goals for today's webinar. So the first is to shine a spotlight on About Fresh's amazing work. We are so fortunate that Lauren Van Evra and Tori Strickland from their team are with us today. You'll meet them in a few minutes. The second goal is to fill your cup a little bit. So the work that you do every day in stores, offices, facilities is really what makes Whole Cities support for About Fresh and our other partners possible. So we hope to show you a bit of the good that has created. And finally, we hope that if you're considering nominating an organization for the Community First Grant, which opens May 3rd, we hope that you'll be inspired from this conversation and take the plunge to jump in. So I know there's a lot of team members on the call who are familiar with the program and have been involved before with Community First Grant, but if this is new to you, I just want to mention briefly that the Community First Grant is Whole Cities grant program that's really powered by team members. So team members from across the US and Canada can nominate an organization in their community that's leading work to expand fresh, healthy food access or nutrition education. After a team member submits and gets support from their STL, it goes through a process where other team members peer review the nomination. Then we invite eligible organizations to apply for a grant that's either $8,000 US or 10,000 Canadian. And what's really important and magical about the grant, what's really special about it, is not so much the funding. While our partners always say the funding is nice, the team member participation is what makes it special. So I think even what starts as one team member participating can often grow into multiple team members on a team, in a store, and sometimes across several locations in a metro area. So if you want to learn more about the Community First Grant, as I mentioned, the nomination period is open on May 3rd, which is next Tuesday. We'll put a link to all the materials we've created for the 2022 session in the chat here. But just let us know if you have any questions. So a little bit about Fresh, our guest for the day. We first learned about their work from former team member Jessica Can, who nominated them for a Community First Grant in 2016, which was the first year that we had the Community First Grant. Most recently, they've been nominated by Chuck Oliveri, who's a specialty team member at the South End store. Their work meets people where they are, literally, because they're selling fresh, healthy food at their mobile market stops. So instead of me telling you about their work, I really want to show it to you. So the About Fresh team kindly opened their doors to our videographers a few weeks ago and to get a closer look at their work. So we're gonna take a look at the video. David, would you do the honors? Yep, David, it looks like it's playing, but without the audio.
Sorry, it's because I was muted.
Food is foundational, right? Because our health determines whether or not, we can show up in community. It determines whether or not we can show up at work at our best, at school. Food is like one of the top most influential factors in our long-term health outcomes. About Fresh is a Boston-based nonprofit. We were founded back in 2013, and we are dedicated to making sure everybody around Boston, increasingly nationally, has access to the food that they need to feel at their best. Our mission was inspired by my experience working at a community health center here in Boston. And I was working at one point with clinicians and low-income single moms. At the same time, the only grocery store in the neighborhood closed. From that point, that just inspired the recognition that food, particularly like grocery retail, is completely cut off and divorced from our healthcare system. And brought on all of our programs, inspired us to build Fresh Truck, our mobile market model, and We've just been building from there. We operate 3 converted trucks as mobile grocery stores around Boston to just make fresh, healthy, affordable food available in neighborhoods where there's not other healthy, affordable, fresh food options. All of our shoppers are able to like walk onto our truck, pick out all of their food, and then they check out at the back of the truck. So it's set up like a normal market, just inside of a bus.
Right now, we're standing on a truck. It's the fresh truck, and where people come and purchase their vegetables and fruits. When you're standing out on the street, it looks like a bizarre green painted school bus with fruits and vegetables on it. But when you come on, we've done as much as you can to make it like the produce department in a grocery store, and people shop they use hand baskets like they would in the grocery store. The idea is to make it as much like a grocery store shopping experience as possible.
But, I think versus a typical grocery store, we make sure that the price point of our food is affordable. And so we're generally 20%, probably a lot cheaper at this point now, like with inflation, than a typical grocery store, to make sure that we're stretching food budgets as far as possible.
So Hyde Park is the southernmost part of Boston. It is also extremely diverse. It does have a high degree of food insecurity. And so this partnership in About Fresh really helped to address that. To be able to have access to nutritional food at an affordable price consistently and know where you can get that type of food is a huge opportunity for this community. Truck will pull up. Usually it's like 2:30, between 2:30 and 3 o'clock, which aligns well with when a lot of the kids are getting out of school. A lot of the parents that are here are doing pickup. So they'll come, they'll grab their child, head to the food truck, grab some stuff. This focus on really healthy and nutritious, wholesome food has really changed, I think, the dynamic of nutrition for this community.
Right here, total pump says 3218, please.
We met the Whole Cities Foundation. Gosh, it's got to be a while back. I think that was initially as a result of some Whole Foods employees coming out and volunteering at our mobile market, seeing the work firsthand.
I found out that through the Whole Cities Foundation, I could apply as a team member for a Community First grant for Fresh Truck. And I did that. I went through that process, and they were one of the organizations chosen to receive a grant. The grant that they received at Fresh Truck was used in different ways, but mostly to help support their growing online ordering system, where people would just come order online and then come to the bus and pick up their pre-packed order.
When COVID happened, we had to kind of restructure our market format and think of new ways to increase access for our communities, for our customers. And one of those opportunities was bringing an online store. The opportunity with e-commerce came that we would give customers the option to pre-order in advance and bypass the line, bypass having to go to a location for a certain amount of time. It's a very quick, very simple process. You select your items, you pay on the spot, and then you're on your way. We want to give people more buying power, right? We want them to be able to buy more for less, right? And I think that is the step forward. And e-commerce is one of those kind of positions. We can access more people and we can access more food, and hopefully at a cheaper cost.
Our newer program is called Fresh Connect. That is a program designed to increase healthy food purchasing power for low-income households experiencing food insecurity. That program has become a payment technology platform composed of a prepaid debit card and a HIPAA-compliant web application that makes it possible for healthcare providers, insurers, community-based organizations, and government agencies to cover the cost of healthy food for people and then measure the impact on retailer. So that program is really powerful from the standpoint that it gives folks just a lot of agency and a lot of choice to go shopping on their time from grocery stores that are close by to where they live that they already love. Fresh Truck has been serving Boston neighborhoods for coming up on a decade. And over that period of time, we built wonderful relationships with a network of partners. And of course, like with our shoppers, we see a really great opportunity to harness all those partnerships and all those relationships to really start organizing to address the underlying causes that allow food insecurity to persist in the first place.
Thanks so much, David. I love seeing the truck whiz through the city streets. So much good happening. As I mentioned, we have the distinct pleasure of having two members of the About Fresh team with us today. Tori Strickland, who's the Director of Communications and Partnerships, as well as Lauren Van Evra, who's the Development Manager, are here. So welcome you two. Thank you so much for being with us. And I just wanted to dive right into a conversation and just learn more. That video, I think, does such a great job of showing a big overview of all the things that About Fresh does, but just love to kind of dig into a couple details on some of the work that you do. In particular, the e-commerce that came out of all the challenges brought by COVID. How has the demand for online ordering been since y'all launched, and how many orders a week are placed?
Hello, I am Tori, like Diana mentioned, and really excited to be here with all of you. So yes, our e-commerce platform launched at the end of 2021, and the response has been, I believe, as you most likely can expect, really outstanding from our shoppers. Mainly, of course, what we all learned during the pandemic is that not only was there a disparity in terms of people being able to access food, but ultimately who and how people were able to ultimately stay safe and ultimately distance themselves in terms of how they were able to procure their foods. So of course that expedited our urgency to launch an online platform, and through our e-commerce have been able, during the pandemic, had been able to start to apply some of that equity around safety when it comes to accessing our food. But more importantly, just been able to really extend that benefit that I know most of us, I know myself personally, participate in on a daily basis or weekly basis in terms of food access. So we're probably having anywhere from about 290, 300 orders a week. So to give that context, we operate about 22 mobile markets a week, but only about, I would say, 1 or 2 of them a day are actually a pickup location. So we are, whatever that math is divided by, that number of markets can give you that there's just a substantial amount of produce that is being taken out to our mobile markets on a weekly basis. And we do that in partnership with a local wholesaler here called Cat Service, who helps us not only be able to source, but also pack. And then we are able to then transport those boxes to our mobile markets on a weekly basis. So it's been really outstanding. And what we're able to also do is be able to still provide access for people who utilize their SNAP EBT, as well as a program here called our Healthy Incentives Program that provides nutrition incentives for fruit and vegetable dollars for fruit and vegetable purchases for SNAP and EBT individuals. So we're able to still process those payments upon pickup. So it's really been a really great opportunity for us to extend that equity out to especially individuals who utilize those dollars. But it's been a really good experience and response from our shoppers who really appreciate it to bypass the line, to just, especially if they have abilities, barriers, or ultimately we have a lot of generational situations where you have maybe grandchildren or things of that nature shopping for their grandparents. So it really just helps with how people are just generally the diverse ways people are accessing their food at the trough.
That's amazing. One thing I think we get a lot of questions at the foundation about is, what does it actually look like when we give a grant? How does it translate into the impact? And so with online ordering, could you speak a little bit about how the grant funds from Whole Cities supported your online ordering efforts?
100%, yeah. So of course, to get an online store up and running, you have to get the online store up and running. So that is quite the undertaking in terms of working with a team and not only getting a store up and running, but also making sure that our online experience mirrors the experience at our truck. So of course we can always, it's quick and easy to upload into a Square site, which we did initially just to kind of fill that gap. But with this partnership opportunity, we really were able to be intentional in how we ultimately onboarded our e-commerce experience onto our shoppers. So ultimately, being able to mirror that experience and be able to intake shopper feedback and replicate that in terms of how they were navigating our site, being able to use our team's experience and being able to do so. And so it's not only from that infrastructure of getting it up and running, but then ultimately operationally, how it is that we work within our team logistically, within our partners, to be able to fund those logistics from e-commerce to our warehouse to getting it out to our trucks. So I think this partnership and this funding opportunity was really a great accelerator for how it was that we were able to establish that presence and ultimately that ease and familiarity of experience for our shoppers that are used to that experience in our trucks, and how we're able to mirror that through our online e-commerce experience.
Yeah, I will just add that when we first applied for the grant, we only had about maybe 4 or 5 like online ordering pickup locations. And we have 9 now. One is twice a week, so we can count that as 10. So we've been able to really double the availability for the community to order online with the help of this grant.
It's amazing. It's a huge undertaking during any time, but especially during such trying circumstances. I mean, just amazing work that y'all have been able to accomplish and are still growing. So just have been love being on the sidelines cheering y'all on and seeing reports and hearing things that have been coming down the pike, because there's just so much more I know that y'all are going to do with it, but y'all have accomplished so much in such a little amount of time. Tori, you mentioned incentive programs. I'm not sure everybody on the call is familiar with what that looks like for SNAP shoppers. Could you just talk a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, so of course, many of our shoppers, I would say a large majority of our shoppers utilize their SNAP and EBT benefits that they receive through state and federal dollars. But here in Massachusetts specifically, we operate a program called the Healthy Incentives Program, which is every SNAP and EBT household is automatically enrolled in it. It's based on family size. You get a certain increment, whether it be a 40, 60, or 80. I believe it's 2 to 3, it's $40. 3 to 5, it's $60. And you can kind of assume that larger families, of course, get a larger amount. But they're automatically enrolled in that. And all they have to do is have a dollar onto their EBT card to be able to utilize that benefit. So they are able to use those dollars specifically at farmers markets. Traditionally in our market, our mobile market is ultimately the only local retailer that operates year round for them to be able to utilize that benefit. So we do see a large volume of EBT shoppers that utilize our help to utilize the state EBT program dollars, and as well as we ourselves operate our own, it's not necessarily a nutrition incentive program, but it's a fruit and vegetable focused produce prescription program that partners with healthcare institutions, as you saw in the video. And that program was piloted outside of our, and with our truck. And so traditionally that program had, was so healthcare to be able to put money onto a card for the people to be able to shop at the fresh truck, to be able to use that money on fresh fruits and vegetables. And we've since expanded that program to be a full prepaid debit card that can now be used at not only fresh truck mobile markets, but also at other retailers for specifically fresh fruit and vegetable purchases. It automatically acknowledges and recognizes those purchases at checkout and makes it easier for our shoppers to be able to get the foods to make them happy, healthy, and healthy.
Great. Switching gears a little bit, I think something that is a topic of conversation throughout the country right now is inflation. And how has inflation affected your shoppers and affected About Fresh's operations?
So what's one of the anchors of our mission is affordability. So ultimately it has, of course, we know it impacts our shoppers on a daily basis in terms of their grocery shopping experience, the fluctuation in prices, how they're able to manage their food budgets. But generally at our truck, because of how it is that we work with our wholesaler, because of the fact that we are a mission-driven organization, we've actually been able to work a bit more creatively and intentionally with our partners to reduce that impact onto our shoppers. So what I mean by that is that even though we work with our wholesalers or we work with our local growers during those growing seasons, generally most everyone is aligned in terms of understanding the impact that people are experiencing on a daily basis in terms of food insecurity. And so always we're able to have creative conversations that acknowledges the what it is wholesalers and producers go through to be able to actually grow and get food from point A to B, but also be able to root it into our mission in terms of making sure that the prices of the foods that we're purchasing are able to be able to sold at an affordable price. The markups on our food are slight, so they're no larger than 2%. And so we're always selling our food at that market price. And so if we get a good price on the food, then we know that our shoppers are also getting a good price on the food. And so through all of those different strategies, and of course, being with having great partners and being a nonprofit organization that helps fund our programs, that allows us to be able to sustain that mission and that model of ensuring that affordability comes first for our partners. And as Josh mentioned, or even one of our partners, which is Stop and Shop, provides a very affordable product, and our prices are still about, at about 20% or more less than many of those locations. So with inflation, we really try to keep consistency important for our shoppers. What products we're selling, what price we're selling, we really only adjust our prices maybe 3 times a year, if that. And if it's an item we absolutely can't get to our shoppers at an affordable rate, we just work with and communicate with them that we might have to bypass that product until that product is at a rate that we know that we should be providing at the truck at a rate that people would like to access it. So ultimately it's more important for us to maintain that affordability and that consistency for our shoppers at the truck, and our partners and great partnerships allow us to do that.
Amazing. We had a question that Lauren answered in the chat about where the produce comes from. And Lauren shared that it's our fruits and produce come from a local wholesaler. So that's great to hear. Have you all been with the local wholesaler for a long time?
Yes, we have. So Cat Service Wholesalers are a Boston organization, and not only they're a great partner, one of their team members is on our board. So we're always able to have creative conversations on not on just ultimately their role in terms of food system and food equity change, but then also how it is they're able to, our collaboration is able to best support our shoppers in our community here locally. We do work with other independent growers when the season allows, but as I mentioned, consistency is really important for us. We really want, like it kind of came across in the video, we want it to know when the truck pulls up, we want people to know that they're getting products that they recognize, that they appreciate, and that they come to the truck every week to see. So they're always going to see plantain, they're always going to see cucumber, they're always going to see different things. But when we have seasonality, we're able to add additional items. We work with local retailers to be able to do that. Local growers here, that's a group in Boston called the Urban Farming Institute that works with the community to learn how to grow food, as well as some of their team grows food. So we source things like collards and different things from them during those growing seasons. But to maintain the volume and consistency that it is that we sell food, we want to make sure that we do that. So we do a combination of wholesale as well as local growing. Can everyone still hear me?
Great. Lauren, did you have something you wanted to add?
I was just gonna say, like, we get a lot of questions about why we don't accept donated goods, and it's because we care about the consistency and the reliability that our shoppers have. Like, it's the equivalent of like going to a grocery store, and if you guys had donated goods instead of goods that were sourced. So that's kind of our approach to it.
Yeah.
And also we sell a lot of it, like a lot of food. And so like one person can walk up and say like, I want, we have to put maximums on it, but I think we have like like an 8-pound maximum for ginger or things like that. So we're sharing, we're selling like a volume of food. So we know that we have to have a diverse way of being able to source food until, our local systems are, which we do, of course, still advocate and work with on a local level, but until we're able to consistently produce the volume that it is that we know that people are interacting with their food in that way, we have to keep it diverse.
That's amazing. 8 pounds of ginger. I want to know how much ginger tea that person is making or what they're making.
I mean, yeah, it's a lot.
So as I mentioned, we might have some folks on the call today who are interested in nominating organization in their area. They could be calling in from anywhere across the US or Canada right now. And I just was curious, since y'all have been through the process before of being nominated and applying for a grant, what advice would you give to a team member who is interested in approaching an organization that maybe they haven't met yet, or is interested in nominating an organization that they know, and then volunteering throughout the year? What do you think it's really important for team members to keep in mind?
Yeah, I think, of course, I think like you mentioned it, in terms of if you're interested in supporting an organization, the easiest foot in the door, of course, is volunteering. like team members like ours, like we really depend, like organizations like ours, we really depend on volunteers on a weekly basis. But we also have some volunteers that, pick a market and they only show up to that market every week. We have some volunteers only show up when we do pop-up markets, or they only show up for special events. So just having that relationship that with the organization, I think is always important. And then that always also provides almost like this internal kind of communication loop that it is to be able to really know what it is the organization is working towards and some of their primary goals as they're going into that work. So volunteering, and then of course staying tuned with your organizations in that way, I think it's always important. Lauren, did you have things to add on to that?
Yeah, I would just agree. I think getting out there and engaging with the organization and seeing, having a conversation with the team about what their growth looks like, what support they need beyond volunteers. I mean, if you're nominating them for a grant, like understanding what financial support they could use would be really great. And that's just all starts by getting out there, meeting them, having a conversation. We see our volunteers as an extension of our team. So we always love to talk to them about what's going on with their programs and our work and all of that.
We also operate another group called here, like we have a monthly donor group here called So Fresh. So that's also an extension of our volunteer program. It's a way for individuals who are just want to be able to give in unique ways, to kind of stay. And then they also are able to kind of have like a unique communication loop with the organization. You're receiving information and updates, and ultimately also having some regular touch points in a more personal way. So if organizations that you are interested in, many of them have similar pipelines for you to be able to know and build personal relationships with the organization without having to, if you, depending on the ways that you're able to give, if you have time to give, if you have money to give, if you have, skills and talents to give, many organizations like ours are always open to that and create pipelines for people to be able to get involved with. So I would also look into those type of avenues as well.
Great suggestions. So it sounds like don't wait, jump in, contact the organization, have a conversation, get involved in volunteering, and be curious and not make assumptions about what the organization might need, because there might be unexpected avenues for you to participate and others to participate. So all good suggestions. Thank you. I'm curious about what it would look like if you volunteered for About Fresh, either Chuck and other team members who have volunteered or other volunteers that y'all have. What do they actually do in the shift?
So like we said, our volunteers are an extension of our team. So short of coming to our warehouse and meet our team right out at the market locations, they do a few things. So of course, with it still being kind of, with COVID still being present and just in general in safety, they help kind of greet people at the door, sanitize baskets, provide hand sanitizer. So when people are coming onto the bus, we have I call them team members, also volunteers that are helping, ultimately maintain like the cleanliness of the bus. They're restocking produce. We always wanted to make, like we said, not only a quality product, but also a quality experience for people to appreciate the spaces that they're in. So we keep things clean and restock. And then ultimately we have a lot of different cultures and that are represented as through our shoppers. And so we also have volunteers to help us translate that are helping with communication barriers and language barriers, and also helping at checkout, bagging items. And then also to get on and off of a retrofitted school bus sometimes could be a steep experience for people. So we also have to make sure that people not only get on the bus safely, but also get off the bus safely. And then also recognizing, like we mentioned, so the different barriers that people experience. Some people are unable to actually enter the bus. So we have volunteers to volunteer to shop for people. They scan the QR code outside, they build their list, and then a volunteer shops for them and helps them bring their packages to their car, to their location. So there's a lot of different ways that our volunteers are helping out at our trucks and making sure that the experience is just a fun and familiar one for our shoppers. So yeah.
Great. And I will ask one last question and then I will open it up to the group. So start thinking. We already have one in the chat. But I was just curious if you could speak a little bit about funding of overhead. So a lot of times organizations, team members, our stakeholders are surprised to hear that we fund overhead. We don't have a limit for the amount that a grant can go towards ongoing and overhead expenses. So could you explain what overhead is and why it's important that more funders give focus to it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, as a nonprofit partner, we love finding foundations like Whole Cities who are willing to fund overhead expenses, which are kind of the admin side of our expenses. So staff salaries, all those like indirect costs that just take part of like running an organization. And that's kind of why they're important. So I always like to remind people like we might be nonprofit, but we are a business. And even though our bottom line looks different, we still need the capacity and the investments in that capacity to execute on our work. And we need the support and funds to do that. And that includes like retaining the best people to do the job and having the infrastructure to build out the websites and the market trucks and everything that's included in that to make sure that we can serve our communities to the best of our ability. And I know it's not as glamorous, but we need that funding to keep the lights on and to keep our presence in the community strong.
Literally keep the lights on. Yep.
Literally.
Well, wonderful. Well, as I mentioned, this is your time to ask Tori and Lauren questions. We've got them here. We also have Chuck, the team member who nominated them most recently for a Community First grant. He is on the call, I believe. So any questions that you have about their work, about Whole Cities or about nominating a partner, please ask away. We're going to start with the first question that we got, which was, what's involved in retrofitting a bus?
So luckily I haven't had to do one myself, but we have great partners. So like we said, a lot of this, behind every and alongside and in front of every nonprofit organization is a diverse range of amazing partners. And so we have partners in the business that helps us retrofit our truck. So it starts at one, getting the vehicle. So with our buses, that of course were donated vehicles, but we have since started to transition our fleet to trucks. As you can expect, maintaining school buses to be a laborious and sometimes not an efficient way to, of course, maintain the regularity of our markets. Parts are more difficult to come by as individuals who service them. So we've been transitioning our fleet. So that's to say we designed, so in that process, we work with our builder to come up with a design based on the layout of the vehicle, prove that design. And we also have already worked with a design team that has designed kind of the outside of the truck. So they apply what that design also will look externally. And ultimately it's getting the vehicle, working with that builder to approve that design and make sure that it is not only be able to hold everything, but also factoring in, of course, how people are able to move safely, how much space they're at, just considering just all the user experience of that we know exists in the market for both our team and our shoppers, loading, different things like that. And then they build it. That's generally a build out, generally takes about, I don't know, our most recent one maybe took about a month, something around that range. Don't hold me to it, but that could be somewhere around that range. And then that's it. So it's really just working with a partner. And luckily for us, this isn't our first rodeo. We like Josh mentioned in the video, we've been doing this work for going on 10 years. And so we built a few of these buses. And so we have a great partner in our builder and are able to actually do a bit more quickly. But yeah, building it, getting all the fruit in it and things like that. Yeah. So gutting it, designing it, getting it going.
And the specifics are like, we build shelves into it, lighting, make sure that we have like we have a generator, we have like electricity to have a refrigerated unit for berries and everything that needs to be kept refrigerated. It's basically like taking everything out, building windows in if necessary. So all of those wonderful features.
And usually a bus or a truck doesn't have an entrance for a person and an exit in the back. And so we always have to uniquely design how it is that someone will actually flow in and as well as out of the bus as well. So, yeah.
And I feel like you'll also have very creative names for your vehicles. So was there recently a tater tot that was added to the fleet?
That was our e-commerce vehicle. So yeah, so because our markets are already, like you mentioned, we're taking a lot of produce, we're taking as much as we can. Depending on the location, we generally know how, how much, and ultimately know what type of restock that market needs, which is already a decent volume. So adding the volume of e-commerce that we do, we knew we were going to need an additional vehicle to follow our markets onto location. So you saw Pina, who's our largest truck. She's able to actually, they're able to actually hold the boxes, but generally it's a smaller transit van. We used to have an even smaller one called Baby Bus, and then we got a bigger one to hold our e-commerce. And when it got bigger, we turned it into a tater tot. So that is kind of how it got its nickname. But generally, all of our fleets are named for the people, the places that impact our work, and even the things that people recognize in our work. So we have one that's named after a longtime supporter, friend of Fresh Truck, and volunteer named Pam. We have one that's named after a partner of ours, a longtime partner of ours called Freedom, named after the Freedom Schools. We had one named after a former board member called 77 because he was a Patriots member. Another community member, we had one named Diane. But we most recently named our truck Pina. We usually do it through a community kind of voting process. It's on social, we go to their newsletters, and our team comes up with the names, and then we let the community vote on it, and then we bring it back to a team for the final name. So it's a full democratic process in terms of how it is that we name our vehicles, but it definitely does kind of maintain kind of the energy and the personality of our work by being able to name our fleets in fun ways.
I love it. We had another question. So somebody says, this is an amazing organization. What happens to the leftover or non-sellable items?
I love this question because generally we don't have leftover or non-sellable items. So generally non-sellable items we do have. That is one thing that we do have. Of course, that just happens in terms of transporting food. When you get it delivered and get it onto a vehicle, you'll notice that different things. If it's something, we always tell our volunteers, if it's something that you wouldn't choose for yourself, don't put it in the bag, or don't encourage someone else to buy it. Different things like that. So we of course do move those items and move them to compost. But generally leftover food, like I mentioned, we have over 22 markets a week, and those happen Monday through Saturday. So we're ordering food every single day. And so we're generally able to have kind of a cyclical process. We have a great operations manager named Francelino, who's working very closely with our wholesaler and ultimately our team at all times, and always paying attention to the cadence of our markets and what shoppers are buying. So we're mainly taking products that we know that we're going to sell. And then ultimately then forwarding those products on to the, the next most recent market the next day, and then bringing that newer market, that newer produce in. So it kind of has a nice little life cycle throughout the week. So generally we don't have a lot of, if hardly any food waste by the end of the week because of the cadence of our markets and the volume that we're selling. When we do see that, that's usually around holidays, things like that are disrupting our schedule and the cadence of our markets. And there's a lot of great organizations in Columbus that do food rescue that we work with. And then also we have great relationships with community members that literally say, I go over to this place, once a week, I can come pick it up. Literally, I think over Thanksgiving, like I mentioned, Pam, who are one of our volunteers is named after, it's like Pam rescued our food, but we also, and took it and gave it to people around Thanksgiving. But generally we work with a group here. We're also part of a food rescue collective where we're able to say, this is the food we're going to have. They're able to come and help pick it up and distribute it to a place in the instances that our schedule gets disrupted. But yeah, what's great is that we're not running into a lot of food waste, which lets us know that the food that we're bringing and the service that we're providing is ultimately what it is that people are looking for and in need of. So it's a good affirmation in that way.
It's fantastic. We have another question. This is for both of you. What are your favorite and least favorite aspects of your jobs?
I'll do Lauren, and then I'll let you go. I always say that I think it's always for anyone in this work, it's an honor to be able to do this work with people, work in the community, being able to recognize where the system has created barriers and gaps for people, and being able to identify unique creative solutions. The worst part of work is that we have to. So the best part is we get to do this work, honor to do this work. The worst part is that we have to do this work. The fact that we have a food system that is not right now currently designed in its aspects to be able to adequately feed people, to get food to people, to ultimately maintain individual agency, purchasing power, flexibility. different things like that we know people value in their daily lives. So ultimately, what we know as an organization, our job is as a nonprofit, is to put ourselves out of business. So that's why we work on the advocacy level. That's why we work on the systems level. On top of all of our work, that's why we're working with programs like our Fresh Connect program that's built to get healthcare as a sustainable investor into this work to ultimately continue to expand purchasing power in the different ways that people access food, and uphold that throughout all the different aspects of our work. So for me, it is the fact that we get to do this work because of all the fun relationships. We know food is fun. We know like food is all of those things, and everyone loves food. So we get to occupy a lot of the joy and community and experiences that happens every single day. That happens with our team, that happens with the community. And I love that aspect of the work. Of course, it is, like I said, it is disappointing that we have to build these kind of unique, we have to retrofit a bus to get food to people. So we definitely are always working to figure out how it is that we build a system that can meet people where they're at in the different ways that they access food, to kind of uphold their individualities, their cultures, their traditions, and their health in all these different ways. But until so, we'll keep having fun doing this work. Lauren, what about you?
So beautifully said. I don't know how I follow that, but I love that I get to make connections for people. I think my favorite thing is that I get to be a vehicle to tell the story of our work and all the superpower things that our program team does every day. And I get to come out and talk to people like you, who are equally passionate about food access, and to tell you, hey, like we're doing really amazing things. And this is how you can impact your community. I love building those bridges for people who want to make a difference, but don't know where to start or don't know how. I think I aligned with Tori. I think the tough part is that food access is such a big need, and it has become so significant over the past couple of years. And I think it's hard to be out there competing for funding and to be knowing that there's just so much of a need out there, and we're just one of the many organizations looking to fill that need. It's tough, but we have fun.
You can tell from that video, there's lots of energy, I would say. It looks like at all of the markets, both from the volunteers, the shoppers, and the About Fresh team.
Yes.
I think we have time for one more question. If anybody has any outstanding things they just have to know. I will say you can always reach out to the Whole Cities team at whole.cities@wholefoods.com, and that will get your email to the right person on our team. And we can also share your questions with Tori and Lauren after the fact. Yes, thank you. It's in the chat now. And I think we have one more question that just came in. So what type of growth do you guys hope to see from Fresh Truck?
So the growth that we're looking for a Fresh Truck, actually it's really more rooted in our e-commerce and how it is that we're able to build that out as an aspect, as a way to be able to further equity in our community. So the biggest growth aspect with Fresh Truck is, is the next tier is Snap Online. Of course, is being able to allow individuals that are using that payment method to ultimately process their payments the same way that we all are able to process our payments online. And being able to bring on that infrastructure and grow that aspect. We're not ultimately looking to invest in, the possibility is potentially one more vehicle, but like we talked about with our work, it really isn't to just build more buses. With our program like Fresh Connect, which actually allows people our healthcare providers to put money on prepaid debit cards and be able to allow individuals to shop at the places they already love for the foods they already shop in their areas. Whether that be Fresh Truck or any other place, we're able to ultimately continue to expand how people are able to access and increase purchasing power that way. So Fresh Truck is generally focused more around SNAP expansion in e-commerce, as well as activating our trucks more for advocacy spaces, activism, storytelling spaces, places around community. Our trucks are used in community festivals and even just like activations of storytelling for how it is that cultures and traditions are existing all around us and how food is an anchor for that. And we want our trucks to be a vehicle, pun intended, potentially, for those stories and for those celebrations. So Fresh Truck is ultimately advocacy tool expansion for SNAP. And then on the opposite side of that, we can continue to work to increase purchasing power and food access through sustainable solutions like Fresh Connect.
Yeah, I would just add that like our goal for Fresh Truck is we're going deep into Boston. We want to further enrich those relationships. We want to get out to locations that need us, and we're really focused on going as deep as possible to make an impact here, where the markets can move where needed.
Fantastic. And we had one final question. How can we contact you? So Lauren just put in the chat, you can find more information about Fresh Truck market calendar and sign up for volunteering at their website. Another good avenue is to reach out to Chuck Oliveri, who is the primary team member in this partnership. We can share his email with you if you contact us through whole.cities@wholefoods.com. Sorry, Chuck. But I know that he's always looking for more team members to get involved in the volunteering. So we can help make those connections. And I know we're running short on time. So I just want to say thank you to Tori and Lauren for joining today, for sharing all of your immense knowledge and expertise with us, and to the whole About Fresh team for not only opening your truck doors to us a few weeks ago to make the film that we just all got to enjoy, but for the partnership over the years. So we first partnered in 2016, and then we've had 2 grants since then that we've been able to partner on. It's meant so much to us to be a small part of your large world. And we can't wait to see what happens next. And then I also wanted to appreciate all the team members who are on the call today. Thank you for taking an hour out of your busy time to learn more about Whole Cities and about this amazing North Atlantic partner. We really can't do this work if you don't do your work. And so we really appreciate everything that you do on a daily basis. And then finally, I wanted to say thank you to Chuck. So this connection was lost when Jessica Can left Whole Foods Market and transitioned out, and Chuck brought it back. So we're really just over the moon that he's now the primary team member in this relationship, and look forward to all the good that will come in the coming years. So thank you everybody for the time. Hope you have a fantastic day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.